I'm Lynette Zang. I am here with Zang Enterprises, which supports community and sound money globally. And I need you to understand something. Actually, you need to understand something, and that really is ownership. Because we have this perception that once we make a deposit, that's my money. It's not your money. Or if we buy a stock, or we buy an ETF, or we buy an option, or we buy any of that intangible stuff that, well, when we just bought it, it's ours. No, it is not. So it is critically important for you to understand the legal ownership of everything, because in a court of law, your perception does not matter at all. What matters, and this is why you always hear me say, if you don't hold it, you don't own it, regardless of your perception. So I wanted to go into this much more deeply, because legally you are simply a beneficial owner of all sorts of intangible assets like stocks, bonds, ETFs, mutual funds, bank accounts, any intangible financial product, insurance contracts, and more. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. I cannot say that enough, and I cannot say that more simply. But let me show you the hidden truth, because you need to be quite clear on this in order to make those educated choices that actually put your best interest first, particularly because we are at the end of this currency's life cycle, particularly because we are at the end of a very long-term trend in which the final wealth transfer occurs. And you can either be the victim of it or the victor of it if you're in the right place at the right time with the right asset. So let's just get started, because what you're looking at here is a wonderful study that was done by Yale Law School. And this is the custodial ownership chart of all of those intangible assets. This is why no one went to jail back in 2008, because everything other than physical gold in your possession, all of these other financial assets are contracts. And any contract is only as good as the counterparty to that contract. But I know you didn't read these contracts before you bought that stock or that ETF, or you made that deposit into your 401k or 403b or any of that stuff. So let's just continue on with these contracts, because up at the top, it is the same 4 or 5 big banks that actually legally own all of your assets. And every bank and subsidiary between these large big banks at the top, and guess where you are? Way down here at the bottom. And when these contracts are created in the U.S., it's 140% of your equity that they are using on their behalf to gamble with. If this is done through England, which is where 99% of them are done, there's no limitations to this custodial string and who gets to use your equity over and over and over and over again. So when this equity, your stocks, your bonds, your ETFs, whatever, when this next crisis occurs, and it's already starting to unfold in the banking sector, whether you realize it or not, whether you see it or not, it's happening right now. When this next financial crisis occurs and your equity is wiped out, all that is showing you is its justification for why you get nothing back out of it. But the reality is if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And gold, physical silver, but physical gold in your possession is the only financial asset that runs no counterparty risk. And I'm showing you why right now with this Yale study. So I've got to ask you this. Are you counting on Wall Street to have your best interest at heart? because they have their best interest at heart. They are the ones, these same banks, over and over and over again, that take risks with your wealth and get bailed out. And this next time, probably bailed in and bailed out. That means that all of your wealth is sucked into this black hole of risk because you don't really own anything that is intangible. I'm keeping this really simple, but it's super important because this is from the Bank for International Settlements, the central banker's central bank. Gold is the only financial asset that does not run counterparty risk, as we just discussed. Gold held at home is not subject to political manipulation. Do you think there's political manipulation that's happening out there? Do you want to be subject to it? Because I don't. I want to get out of the fray, let everything occur, hold my purchasing power intact so that I'm the one that can have the wealth transfer my way. You're the one that can have the wealth transfer your way. This is simply a repetition of history. Gold has been a proven inflation hedge because there's a finite amount of this. And it's more and more scarce every day, but there's an infinite amount of this, and this is really the only tool that the central bankers have less. And we know every time they do that, the money that's already out there has less and less value. So yeah, finite amount. And then finally, gold is best known for its protective role in a crisis. I don't know, we've got wars that are erupting, frankly, all over the world. We have such a fragile banking system that it could implode at any moment without any notice, because this is happening deep in underneath that iceberg, and you can't see it until it's too late. Just like 2008. Do you think there's another chance of that happening? Because all they did since 2008 was print more money, create more inflation. That's all that they have. And that's why we've seen spot gold, even manipulated spot gold, go from roughly $600 an ounce to where it is today, like $2,400 an ounce. And that still does not reflect its true fundamental value. They are buying more gold even into the first quarter of 2024 than they ever have historically. What do you think? 2022, 2023. But this started in 2005, before the great financial crisis. Do you think that looking at what central bankers are doing can give you a little heads up on what's happening? Who controls this money supply? It's the central banks. So I always think that you should do what the smartest guys in the room are actually doing for themselves. They're buying gold just as quickly as they can, hand over fist. Me too. Any questions? So let me just say that you don't own anything that is intangible, but you can own the only financial asset, the only one that runs no counterparty risk, can protect you from inflation. If you hold it, it becomes invisible and therefore is not subject to political manipulation. And finally, best known as a war chest asset. This is the true flight to safety asset. Not this stuff, which is what they want you to believe. Don't believe the lies. Believe the truth. In gold and silver, I trust. Sound money.